Ukrainian regime has pursued a course of aggressive de-Russification and forced assimilation.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Russian armed forces in the current war with Ukraine. The mismatch between the armed forces of the two countries is a crucial aspect in the battle, as Russian troops invade Ukraine, hoping to seize the capital Kyiv and topple the government. Russian soldiers outnumber their Ukrainian counterparts in practically every statistic, including size, strength, and technological quality of equipment. Stay to the end of this video to see how Ukrainian troops had created advantage over the Russian forces. The Russian Federation's armed forces, also known as the Russian Armed Forces, are the Russian Federation's military forces. They are divided into three branches: the ground forces, navy, and aerospace forces. The strategic rocket forces and the airborne troops are also two separate branches of the military. The Russian armed forces, along with the border troops of the Federal Security Service, FSB, the National Guard, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, MVD, the Federal Protective Service, FSO, the Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, the Main Directorate of the General Staff, GRU, and the Ministry of Emergency Situations Defense make up Russia's military services and are directly under the control of the Russian Security Council. With roughly 1 million active duty personnel, the world's fifth largest, and at least 2 million reserve members, the Russian Armed Forces is one of the world's largest armed forces. All male citizens between the ages of 18 and 27 are drafted for a mandatory year of duty in the armed forces. The Russian Armed Forces, being the world's second most powerful military, have the world's greatest stockpile of nuclear weapons. It has the world's second largest ballistic missile submarine fleet and is one of only 3 countries with strategic bombers. The Russian Armed Forces possesses the greatest tank forces in the world, as well as the world's second most formidable air force and navy fleet. Russia spent $61.7 billion on defense in 2020, ranking 4th in the world. On December 25, 1991, the Soviet Union was officially dissolved. Various attempts to maintain its unity and transform it into the Military of Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS, failed throughout the next year. Over time, some military forces stationed in the newly independent republics swore allegiance to their new national governments, and a series of treaties between the newly independent states divided the military's assets. Apart from acquiring control of the majority of the former Soviet internal troops and the KGB border troops, the new Russian government's main independent defense move prior to March 1992 appeared to be the announcement of the formation of the National Guard. Until 1995, at least 11 brigades of 3,000 to 5,000 men each were to be formed, with a total of no more than 100,000 men. Military elements for the National Guard were to be stationed in 10 regions, including Moscow, 3 brigades, St. Petersburg, 2 brigades, and a number of other significant towns and provinces. By the end of September 1991, the National Guard in Moscow numbered around 15,000 men, the majority of whom were from former members of the Soviet Armed Forces. President Yeltsin eventually tabled a proclamation on the temporary position of the Russian Guard, but it was never implemented. The countries of the newly established CIS signed a document on the temporary appointment of Marshal of Aviation Yevgeny Shaposhnikov as Minister of Defense and Commander of the Armed Forces on their territory, including strategic nuclear forces, after signing the Belovezhye Accords on December 21, 1991. Shaposhnikov was appointed Supreme Commander of the CIS Armed Forces on February 14, 1992. Boris Yeltsin issued a decree on March 16, 1992, establishing the Russian Federation's armed forces under the operational supervision of the Allied High Command in the Ministry of Defense, which was headed by the President. Finally, on May 7, 1992, Yeltsin signed an order forming the armed forces, and he was appointed Supreme Commander. General Colonel Pavel Grachev was appointed Minister of Defense in May 1992, and upon taking office, he was named Russia's first Army General. By August or December 1993, CIS military formations had devolved into CIS military cooperation structures, and all real power had been relinquished. Russian soldiers withdrew from Central and Eastern Europe as well as other newly independent post-Soviet nations over the next few years. While the retreat went through without a hitch in most places, the Russian armed forces remained in contested areas such as the Crimean naval port of Sevastopol, as well as Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and Transnistria. The armed forces have a number of bases abroad, particularly on the territory of former Soviet republics. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been termed a special military operation by Russian President Vladimir Putin. This has not, however, been a narrow, limited military effort from the start. Some have dubbed the operation Operation Z after the prominent letter Z marks on the Russian military and support equipment. It's also Moscow's biggest and most complicated military operation since the 1979 invasion of Afghanistan. It's also the first time the rest of the world has seen Russia's new-look military machine in action, a modernized professional fighting force that's been entirely refurbished since the 2008 conflict with Georgia. Despite winning the war, the Russians were critical of their combat performance and began a decade-long defense modernization effort fueled by a large increase in military spending of over $700 billion. Russia's present operation is being carried out by two new combined arms army groups based near the Ukrainian border in Russia's western and southern districts, which were formed after Russia's takeover of Crimea in 2014. These forces, which combine many military branches like armor, infantry, missile and artillery, aviation, and engineering, were prioritized throughout the reform effort. The Russian invasion force's first wave included 60 tactical battalion groups, up to 60,000 troops, elite airborne troops, and special operation forces. The Aerospace Force's long-range aviation branch, which can deliver nuclear or conventional strikes, and the Russian Navy. Furthermore, the Russians have used the so-called People's Militias of the separatist Donetsk and Luhansk regions, two army corps with a combined strength of almost 40,000 individuals, as their main offensive force in eastern Ukraine. Russian special operations units are being used to conduct reconnaissance missions, stage sabotage operations behind enemy lines, and target important political and military officials, including Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky, just as they did in Syria. The Russian significant employment of Chechen elite commando groups, known as the Kadyrovsky, is also significant. The Kadyrovsky are infamous for being battle-hardened, highly driven, and brutal combatants. They are frequently utilized to intimidate opposing forces. Most of Russia's recent military efforts abroad, notably Lebanon, Georgia, and Syria, have benefited from Chechen participation. Some Chechen volunteers fought alongside pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine in 2014 and 2015. The Kadyrovsky will almost certainly be utilized in urban operations and during systematic security sweeps inside Russia-occupied territory during the current war, resulting in a large number of detentions and persecutions. Before we discuss how the Ukrainian troops will fare against the Russian forces, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Now to conclude, Russia has the world's fifth largest standing army, with 900,000 active troops and 2 million reservists, compared to 196,000 active forces and 900,000 reservists in Ukraine. However, Russia has only deployed about 200,000 troops around Ukraine for the invasion, implying that the forces are fairly evenly matched in terms of boots on the ground. Ukraine, on the other hand, has mobilized all men aged 18 to 60 who are capable of fighting, implying that they may actually have a numerical advantage in terms of personnel. That said, there is a massive Russian force that dwarfs the forces deployed in the First and Second Chechen Wars, and is comparable in scale to the Soviet Union's or NATO's largest peacetime operations during the Cold War. However, troop numbers are meaningless without weaponry to back them up, and Russia has a huge advantage here, with far more and far better equipment than its Ukrainian opponents. Russia's army has roughly 12,500 tanks and other weapons, compared to Ukraine's 2,500. Yet Russia hasn't deployed all of its tanks for this invasion, thus the overall disparity in this fight will be lower than the aggregate numbers suggest. Russia also has the largest number of nuclear weapons, so if this war escalates any further, Putin might order nuclear strikes. Tell us in the comments section what you think about the ongoing war, and if you think NATO should interfere. Also, while you're here, be sure to check out our video on Russia's lethal and unbeatable military nuclear capability.